PBS correspondent Judy Woodruff apologized for comments she made on air regarding former President Donald Trump and the peace talks going on in Israel. Now, the controversy started when, during the DNC on Monday, Woodruff repeated a story from Reuters and Axios, and she said Trump had been encouraging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to delay a ceasefire deal until after the election because that might hurt Kamala Harris. Let's watch.
The reporting is that former President Trump is on the phone with the Prime Minister of Israel, urging him not to cut a deal right now because it's believed that would help the Harris campaign. So I don't know where that, I don't know, who knows whether that will come about or not.
Trump has maintained he did not speak with Netanyahu about that. Netanyahu told the Jerusalem Post that Woodruff's statements were a, quote, complete lie.
2 days after the segment, Woodruff then apologized on X, writing, quote, "I want to clarify my remarks on the PBS News special on Monday night about the ongoing ceasefire talks in the Middle East. As I said, this was not based on my original reporting. I was referring to reports I had read in Axios and Reuters about former President Trump having spoken to the Israeli Prime Minister. In the live TV moment, I repeated the story because I hadn't seen later reporting that both sides denied it. This was a mistake, and I apologize for it."
Yeah, so let's be careful about what happened here. So they did speak, Trump and Netanyahu.
They did.
Reuters and Axios reported that they spoke, but they did not say that Trump urged Netanyahu not to take the deal. In fact, the source that told Axios said that the call was intended to encourage Netanyahu to in fact take the deal, but the source did not know what was actually said on the call. So we don't know what was actually said on the call. Judy Woodruff introduced the idea that, not, as far as I can tell, Axios and Reuters, and I apologize if I've missed that somewhere. I've just read the Reuters story, which is a summary of the Axios story, and nowhere in there does it say that Trump told Netanyahu not to take the deal, said nothing about Kamala Harris. Whether he did or not, we just don't know that information. We don't know what was said on the call. She either just got that really wrong because she read it too quickly, or lied or made it up, or she screwed up. So she was absolutely right to apologize, because we had a long discussion yesterday about whether his conduct could have possibly violated the Logan Act, which stops private citizens from engaging in diplomacy on behalf of the U.S. government. And, we had a debate about that. Our debate still stands, depending on how you think the Logan Act would apply. But the underlying factual reason to make that claim is, I think, not at all supported, because we have no reason to think he actually did say that.
And here on the show, we credited it to Judy Woodruff. And she's saying, not original reporting from me. She clearly misunderstood the article that she read. And so it's been this strange telephone game. But now she's kind of in hot water, because accusing someone of doing something that is a crime is not a good way to use your free speech. He could sue over.
Watch out, Judy. You got to be careful when you're just talking on TV for hours at a time that you don't say something wrong. Something we all have to be aware of. And look, it happened. So I guess I won't be too hard on her, but that was a big mistake.
Right.
She was correct to apologize for it.
Right. There is a world where Bibi and Trump are both lying, and they did talk about this, but I think at this point they've both denied it. It's the right thing to do for Judy to apologize. I think that her saying this and causing this sort of frenzy over it has now put a lot more attention on the issue. Trump could say this is something that hurts his political chances. He could make a meal about this. He could make her one of his favorite enemies, as he often does. We could be hearing her name a lot, and him talking on Truth Social about how Judy Woodruff ruined my campaign.
Yeah, he could accurately state the mainstream media is lying about me, is saying I am working against the ceasefire deal, made up something that happened, and that would all be true based on how this went down.
He could be like, no, I called Bibi and I said I wanted one. And of course, Bibi, who's on the same team as Trump, is going to be like, yeah, whatever you say, my guy. Totally.
Yeah. And I don't think I think there should be, again, we had this debate yesterday. I think the Logan Act would quite stand up to scrutiny if it was challenged to this degree, because I think Donald Trump is within his First Amendment rights to talk to Bibi Netanyahu about what he thinks the Middle East policy, the Israel policy should be. And if you don't like what he says to Netanyahu, or you think he's encouraging there not to be a ceasefire deal, you can absolutely hold him accountable for that by declining to vote or support for Donald Trump. But if he's, it goes to show if he's actually encouraging Netanyahu to take the deal, that's going to make a lot of progressive people happy. They're not going to want him charged with a Logan Act violation. They're going to be good. Say, please do that. Please urge him to do that.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories about the mainstream media is when I was told by a longtime foreign correspondent for the New York Times, Stephen Kinzer. Now he writes about U.S. intervention abroad, because that's essentially what he was reporting on during the Reagan era for the New York Times. He was in Nicaragua, and he was told by his boss that there's talk of a plane, some kind of Russian shipment coming in on a boat or a plane of weapons to the Contras, or rather to the Sandinistas. The Contras were, of course, being funded by the right wing in the United States and Ronald Reagan. And Stephen said, I would have known about that. I'm pretty aware of what's going on the ground here. That's what you pay me for, guys. And they said, no, we want you to go anyway. He said, okay. He's up at 4 a.m. waiting at the shipyard. Nothing comes in. He goes on back. He says, there's no shipment. They say, write the story anyway. And they run the story. Shipment from Russia doesn't arrive in Nicaragua, which makes every reader believe that there was a shipment. It just didn't come. And the Russians are in cahoots with the Sandinistas during the Cold War era. That's all they wanted the public to understand, is that these two things are connected. And so the media operates in that way a lot. And I'm not saying that's what Judy Woodruff's intent was, but stories like that do run all the time.
Yeah, I think she just casually assumed that Trump was going to be engaged. I guess I shouldn't try to predict or guess what. She might have just gotten it wrong. She might have read the story wrong and thought it was saying the opposite of what it was saying. That does happen, and it's a tough job to be on camera and say things that are accurate with 100% correct. She did not do that here, and deserved the criticism, and has apologized. But
especially true during war reporting as well, I will say.
Yeah, and it's the idea that it's Trump's fault that there's no ceasefire deal is, I think, a kind of pretty loathsome idea to inject into the dialogue when Kamala Harris, the other candidate, is the vice president of Joe Biden, who has not pressed Netanyahu for a ceasefire, has not used the leverage that the U.S. federal government has over Israel in terms of the support we give them. There's been mild, occasional, slight criticism, mild, occasional, slight postponement of weapons. But broadly speaking, the Biden administration has stood by the Israeli government and in support for what they're doing in Gaza. And, you can agree with that or not agree with it, but that's what they're doing. And Kamala Harris has been a supporter of that. And if she's going to break from it, it's, again, maybe that's vibes. She has not signaled or said, suggested, directly stated how she would break from it, how she would bring about a ceasefire in any way differently from Biden. So for a media operator to shift the conversation, go, it's really Donald Trump who's stopping there from being a ceasefire deal, that's an annoying thing to say. That's not true. He's not in charge of the policy. Joe Biden is in charge of the policy. Kamala Harris is part of it, and the policy has been whatever Israel wants.
Also, let's imagine how this could have happened if it's true that Donald Trump urged Netanyahu to not sign on with a ceasefire deal. He would call him, hi, Bibi, don't do that ceasefire deal thing. It'll be good for Kamala Harris. Bibi would say, hello, Donald, I wasn't going to anyway. End of phone call. No negotiation. Netanyahu doesn't want a ceasefire deal with the terms of, any kind of permanence, any kind of arms embargo. They don't want to pull out of Palestine. So Bibi doesn't want this anyway. And so there's a case to be made for, would there have been a negotiation even if Donald Trump expressed this interest to Netanyahu? Perhaps not.
More Rising right after this.